Hello, everyone. How are we all doing? I am Chris, and I am joined with... Oh, there he is. Sorry, your screen went black there for a second. I thought I was on my own for a second. I'm joined with Dale once again. He's currently chowing down on some
For me,
food.
venison.
Uh, we've lost all the vegans. Hey, everyone. Yeah, no, this is cool. We're up to number 5 today. I should say what we're doing first, shouldn't I? 100 Years of Wonder. 100 Years of Disney. To celebrate the 100th anniversary of the founding of Walt Disney Animation Studios, we are taking it upon ourselves to do a stupidly long retrospective of like 65 movies, have we said? 60 plus movies.
I think isn't it 64 at the moment, but it'll be 65 by the time we finish.
Yeah, so Wish is out either this week or next, and I will tell you exactly what number that is. That is...
65, I'm going to say. I'm going to say 65.
It should say... It doesn't say. Hang on. Let me bring up the list of Disney animated classics. Now, this is probably going to give me the American list. So this is going to be slightly different to ours, I would imagine.
I just want to say, whilst Chris goes on this adventure, what's everyone's favourite colour? I would like a comment of your favourite colour.
Favourite colour? Well, mine's red, so I'll get that out there for me.
Mine is purple.
Oh, this is really annoying. It doesn't number them. That's really irritating. Anyway, it's okay. 60 plus. But we're up to number 5 today. We're a little over a month into this thing. Number 5, Bambi. I did look for my video. I couldn't find it. So if I find it next week when we do Saludos Amigos, you're going to see my VHS of Bambi. So there we go. But make do with the DVD for today. I've actually rewatched this one a lot more times than all the other ones. It's really interesting for me. We'll go into like specifics in just a second, and obviously we'll have our usual behind the scenes info and trivia and things like that, and our first time watching this film. This is a film for me very much like the book. It's split in 2 halves. You have like all the cutesy and childhood trauma section of the young Bambi section, and then we flash forward into his adolescence, and it's always that second half where I kind of forget what happens. This isn't like a really massively involved film, but I just get lobotomized halfway through this movie, and I always forget what happens in the second half. The first half's way more memorable for me. So I've rewatched this thing like 2 and a bit times, I think, in preparation for this. We've both rewatched it today, actually. I think you did the same as well. You watched it like a bunch of times as well. Nikki says, "The heck's going on in here?" Land Before Time Bambi.
That's a good point. Didn't you mention something about that earlier?
I did. Nikki, what do you mean about what's going on in here? I'm confused. Is something wrong with the stream? I should check this, actually. Let me just check if the stream's alright. Yeah, I mentioned Land Before Time. Land Before Time came out like 40 years after this film, but I definitely think they were inspired from Bambi, shall we say. It's quite traumatizing. Let me just check that the stream's all up and running and that everyone can hear us and that everything's all right. Nikki's just saying hi. It's been a while, Nikki. How you doing? Oh yeah, we're all good. Yep, the stream's absolutely fine. We're sound. How you doing? Hopefully everything's going all right in your life. But yeah, Land Before Time Bambi. Both childhood trauma. For me, more so with Land Before Time, just because I think I was quite late to the party with Bambi. I think I watched like bits of it when I was younger, but again, my memory is very hazy on this film. We'll start with you. First time watching this film, because you've hinted at this being quite an impactful film on you, I think, right?
I think my nan was a bit of a sociopath because, like, the concept, like, it was one of those things, like, when you're with your nan. I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but when I was with my nan and she made me watch like Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, all that kind of stuff, Bambi was one of them. It was one of the ones that was just watched, and like I say, I just always remember Bambi's mom dying. And it's like you say with the whole second half. Now, here's the thing. Now, I know I've never referenced these guys before, but Van Halen. So, you have obviously like the first half of Van Halen, like the David E. Roth era, which everyone remembers, and that's Van Halen. That's your peak. That's what you know. But then you have the second half, which is Sammy Hagar, which every album was number one, but people don't remember it as much. Do you know what I mean? It's the
Yeah,
same thing with
yeah.
Bambi. Like everyone remembers Bambi's mum getting shot, and that's your climax. It's like a porno, like like a weird kind of, you know what I mean? Like you have that climax at the end, and yes, there's stuff that goes on afterwards, but because the climax is so big and it's so whoa and it's so significant, people don't remember. Like because you touched on very briefly earlier about the second half.
Mm.
I think the big thing about that first half was, like I say, my first memory of it was with my grandma, just in the living room, just kind of like, oh, Bambi's mum got shot. What? Like, oh, there's snow, and I was kind of sad, but I didn't know why I was sad. It was
Mm-hmm.
that kind of weird. But yeah, that was my first memory of it. It's always one of those weird. I mean, there's so many things I could say, which will come on in a second, but
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those weird, everyone knows what happens in this movie. It's kind
Yeah.
of like, Darth Vader being Luke Skywalker's father. Sorry if I spoiled it, but it's kind of like Darth Vader being Luke Skywalker's father. It's one of those things that you just know.
You just always know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same with Bambi. The first half, you see Bambi as a little, what's a baby deer called? Not a calf, is it?
It's a fawn, isn't it?
Fawn. That's
Yeah.
it. You see, baby, Bambi is a little fawn, and you see, him in that way, the little prince, as they call him, and his mum dies. That's what you know. Obviously, there's more afterwards, but this is the significant kind of everyone I think watched it as a kid, especially like born in the 90s, 80s, that sort of era.
Yeah, I was actually going to touch on that, what you mentioned, that just everyone knows what happens. Everyone knows the pivotal moment of this film. And I think even growing up, even before I saw the film, I was aware of it. So I was almost kind of emotionally prepared for the scene. I don't really have many vivid, like, traumatic memories of that scene as a child. For me, it was more... I mean, I'm a product of the 90s, aren't I? So when we get onto it eventually in many, many weeks' time, but like Mufasa's death in this, or growing up with The Land Before Time, that was much more impactful to me because it was more immediate. Those were films that I watched almost on heavy rotation on the daily. So I guess I got my fill of parenthood death from those films. And then Bambi was just, yeah, it was, I think it's one that I probably watched at my uncle's and just caught up with, but I actually don't remember. This wasn't one that I owned on video as a kid. This was one that I probably watched at my auntie and uncle's and then eventually bought later down the line for my collection. But even still now, Bambi's not one that I watch often. Apparently I do when I'm preparing for a review for it, but like just in my everyday, it's honestly not one that I come back to. And I was reading about the reception of this film at the time, and it seems like a lot of people were quite mixed on this. Especially because before this, Disney had kind of established themselves as, telling fairy tales and things like that. I guess Dumbo and Fantasia weren't, but I think everyone was still harkening back to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I mean, this feature goes way back. This was going to be the second animated feature. If things had been slightly different, this whole retrospective would have been in a very different order. This is one of Walt Disney's personal favorite Disney films, and when they acquired the rights to it, I think originally, was it like hang on, it was on here somewhere, like 1933, sorry. Sidney Franklin, who was a producer and director at MGM at the time, he purchased the rights to it with the intention of making a live-action adaptation of this, which is just a nightmare to even think about how you would make a film like that. And after realizing that it would be incredibly difficult to make, he sold the rights to Disney all the way back in 1937, so when Snow White originally came out. And Disney was just so enamored with it that he put everything into it straight away, right out the gate immediately, with, as I said, with the intention of it being the second feature. However, they quickly realized that they wanted to try and replicate realistic animals. And I know you've mentioned this before as well, because we were talking about last week when we talked about Dumbo, how you really like how Dumbo and Bambi are kind of packaged together as Disney animated features number 4 and 5, because you have the more cartoony animals in Dumbo, and then in Bambi that you can definitely feel that more mature shift. Yeah, there are the cutesy moments, and Bambi's on the ice, and you got Thumper and Flower and everything like that. but there's definitely
Flower's
more
my
of a
favorite
somber
character.
tone to it. Yeah, there's definitely, you can see it in the animation, and I think that works really well for it. Yeah, they have given them more of a, like a cartoony edge. It's like it's like a happy marriage between the two. Like you see Bambi's mom or the like the elk or whatever he is, like the prince of the forest, very very somber, very mature, and then you get Bambi, and it's the classic Disney thing now, the trope that we all come to know. It's the big eyes, it's the cutesy stuff, right? So I think they nailed it in terms of the animation, and I really like the tone of this film. I really do. But that tone actually was something that put a lot of people off at the time. They wanted Disney to be whimsical and fun and fanciful, and they were like, "Oh, what's this weird
They
deer
wanted
film?"
it to be fun and fancy free.
We're getting to it soon, my dude. Soon, soon. Number nine. We're almost up to it. You'll be very happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was in like production hell for like a long time. In 1938, they were doing storyboards for it, and then they got distracted by working on Fantasia, and then in 1939 they started working on it again. But then there was a big shake-up at the studio and the location, and probably the strikes as well. It was like really threw a spanner in the works. That's why we're up to it now at number 5. But I guess we can sort of like go into initial opinions, and then we'll branch out more and talk about the animation and the characters and songs and everything like that. Has your opinion changed on it after rewatching it a number of times preparing for this review, or has it kind of stayed the same from what you remember it?
No, my opinion hasn't changed at all. That's the weird thing about it. Like I could watch this now, like literally this second. I could be watching it whilst I'm not at the moment, but I could be watching it this second whilst I'm talking about this. It hasn't changed at all. It's exactly the same with the whole kind of Bambi's mom's death is still really sad, and it's that kind of thing with the snow and the whole. I just think it's again classic Disney. I've always got a soft spot for the way it's drawn, the way it's done, the way how. Remember when I spoke about Snow White, how everything was very like it was a play.
Yeah.
You know, the scenery was different too. Obviously, with every animation, you've got the scenery and you've got, you know, the main characters you move around, but it was very prominent. Is that the word? You know what I mean? It's very prominent. And I feel like Bambi was the same with that. And I don't think it has changed at all. It's a very, but I think it's a movie every kid needs to see because it's just so good. It has so many emotions. I mean, I don't know if you're the same as me, but I will tell you right now, if I play a game or I watch a movie and I have my favorite character, I will always look at them and go, I really hope they die. I really want a death scene. I don't know whether that's psychopathic or whatever, but it's the same with if I write books, because I write a couple of stories here and there, and I just think this would be good to have this character have a death scene because you want the emotional impact. And it's the same thing. It's got that emotional impact that I think is great behind it. Whereas Dumbo, like we said, packaged very well together. It's not Dumbo doesn't have an emotional impact, but is very playful, very this. Whereas Bambi is your whole, oh, okay, they did that. You get what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, with Dumbo, you do have the mother element as well, right? The father's kind of out of the picture, and then the mom is locked away from the child. You have baby mind and everything, so that there is that mother-son dynamic with Dumbo, which is, you know, very prevalent in this film as well, but in much more tragic circumstances in this film. And actually, I don't know if it was Walt Disney's daughter at the time. She was really angry about killing Bambi's mum off, and that's in the original book as well. Like, this is based on a book from 1923, a novel called Bambi, A Life in the Woods, Austrian author. I did read the plot synopsis of the book, and it is very different, and obviously with a book it's much more involved. This is a Disney film. How long is it? 70 minutes. Apparently 12 minutes of this movie were cut because of budgeting reasons. Walt Disney Company had lost a lot of money from Pinocchio and Fantasia, not because those films were bad. You can check out our reviews on those. We were very we love those films, but there was a world war on at the time, so people weren't getting to the movies all that much, and because of that they had to shelve 12 minutes of footage. I'd be really interested to see what that would be. This film's kind of interesting though, because I want to say it's quite light on character, and I don't know if that's an aspect about it that makes me not come back to it all that much. on the one hand, I appreciate that it's almost like, I think we've talked about this before with like Pulp Fiction or something. It's like a snapshot. It's like a day in the life kind of thing of these people in this
Yes, when I
environment.
compared Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to
Yes.
Snow White.
Yeah, there we go. Oh no, we've got Van Halen references every episode now. We've got Tarantino references, and I like that about. I like that it's that just we're in the forest and we're watching these animals live out their day kind of thing. That's cool. But then they do offer some shred of character when you've got like the dynamic with Thumper and Flower and Bambi, that trio of characters at the beginning. And I'm guessing that's probably why it's the most memorable part for me, because then the second half, Bambi doesn't really have many lines and there's not as much interaction, and it's much more visual where you're just kind of watching things happen towards the end.
I think
Yeah.
the thing is, I see Lion King as a okay. I say spiritual successor is the complete wrong phrase, but a very like imagine Bambi, but different. If that makes any sense to anyone, but you know what I mean, because you had the first half where you've got. I mean, it's not half. It's not the halfway through like Bambi was, but Simba as a child and then Simba as he grows up.
There's a time jump. There's a big time jump in between it. Yeah.
And I feel like there's a big significance with you know, if I was to ask you, how do you see Simba? How would you, if you just describe Simba in one phrase, how would you describe Simba?
Well, which age? Because he's a
No,
very
this is the thing. Just Simba. Simba the lion. How would you describe him?
Well, he's quite full of himself initially, isn't he? He's quite mischievous.
Yeah, but which are you thinking
playful.
of? Simba as an adult or
Simba as a
child?
cub. No, Simba as a cub.
Okay, but it's the same thing. Bambi. If I was to ask you about Bambi, you're not going to think about adult Bambi, are you?
Yeah, 100%.
This is what I mean. So there's two versions of both characters, and I feel like that's, I say not a spiritual successor, but it's very, very like you watch Bambi, then you watch Lion King, and you go, very similar movies. If that makes any sense. But do you get what I mean? It's a very similar vibe, but I say less dark, but not really.
No, this film's incredibly dark.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get on to that in a few weeks, maybe in about a year.
Yeah. I mean, this film could have been a lot darker if it had really followed the book 100%.
Yeah.
Reading the plot synopsis, this film goes places. There's even like a sort of religious aspect to the end of the book as well, which is really interesting. So throughout the book, man is referred to as he with a capital H. So already very biblical, very godlike, very Jesus-like. And then at the end of the book, I think Bambi is shown a dead human body where like another man has gone out and shot and murdered this other human. And then having seen that, oh, man is mortal, man can also be killed and man can also be hunted, then he realizes there's a even higher being at the end of the book, controlling everything else. So kind of Christian allegory at the end almost, which I think is actually kind of a neat spin on it. But like the animals are thinking about this existential stuff and cosmological things like that. But obviously you don't get that in this movie. A lot of the characters have been removed. There's been some new characters introduced in typical Disney fashion. But yeah, Disney's daughter was really angry that he kept Bambi's mom's death in there, saying that there was no need to have that in the film, and it was really mean-spirited and it was really dark, and she just really didn't like it. And he said, well, this happens in the book and we're adapting the book. And she says, yeah, but you've adapted books before and made massive artistic, taken massive artistic liberties with it and completely changed the narrative, so why can't you do it this time? I think that is a massively significant moment though, and I think it should absolutely be in the movie, because that changes everything, and that's the wild, that is nature, that that does happen. I think it's
the
really
wild
important.
is a Disney movie.
Yeah, yes it is. Number 46.
But
we'll
the
get
thing
to it.
is, what was I going to say? The Bambi's mom dying is it just, if it doesn't happen, what like you got to think, if it doesn't happen, what do you have?
Well,
a movie about a deer. Well done.
Yeah.
It's great and it's cool, and it's basically, if that doesn't happen, it's Dumbo. It's cool, it's fun. Yes, Dumbo has its tragedy here and there, but it's Dumbo. Whereas this is your very kind of like, oh, okay, it's a bit more serious. which I think is great because obviously the contrast between the two, having one then the other, is like, whoa, okay, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm really sorry if you can hear that, by the way, on my microphone. I think my next door neighbours are doing some like drilling in the wall, so if that's coming out on my microphone, I do apologise. I guess we need to talk about the main scene, don't we? We've just kind of alluded to it there. It's definitely the most pivotal scene in the film. One thing that actually I forgot that the film did, and I think it's really cool that it did this, is that there's two meadow scenes. And when it was happening the first time, I thought, oh, this is the scene. This is the scene. But they tease it, don't they? They like, oh, man's in the meadow and everything's heightened tension and the music kicks in and there's the gunshot. But then she survives and like the mom's fine and everything's okay. And it just kind of, it's that setup. It's that foreshadowing as this danger is real and this danger is sort of like ever present, and it instills that in you. And it's a good life lesson for Bambi at that point when he's first coming into contact with the meadow and all the dangers that it can face. And then the second time you go there, that's obviously when the tragedy happens. It's a really well done scene. I think initially as well there was going to be a scene where you see his mum jumping over a log and getting hit and like falling down, but they changed that so you don't see the body. It's all off screen, which I think works quite well actually, because I mean you still get the emotional impact from it where, you know, Bambi's walking around. The snow's so effective as well in that scene. The animation's absolutely stellar in this film. And then one of my favourite lines to quote from this film is just where the deadbeat dad just shows up out of nowhere and he's like, your mother cannot be with you anymore. And it's like, come with me. That's...
The thing is, that kind of showed the whole, because you remember how they really looked up to the whole, you know, Bambi's dad. They looked up to him. He was the kind of, and this is the thing. And I mean, I think this is one of the things they take away from modern movies, because obviously modern sensitivity, and we'll get onto that a lot later on because that's not
patriarchy.
Yeah. But the stud of the deer and the whole, realistically,
that's nature.
Does the female have any relation? No,
it
doesn't. They look up to the deer because he has studied so many different fawns, so many deers, so many those kind of things, and it's nature.
And he's the protector, right? He's the protector of the herd, and
everyone looked up to him, didn't they?
Yeah.
And that's the difference, and I think that's the great thing about it, which was you see him, and the first shot with him is a very majestic, like, oh, why is everyone bowing down? Whatever Bambi says, I can't remember what he says, but the whole, why is everyone looking at him like that? Oh, he's the protector. It's that kind of thing. He is the number one, and it just shows how the animal kingdom is, because if you met a snake, a king cobra tomorrow, right? The king cobra will probably kill you, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not intentional. He's not going, I fucking hate Chris, I'm going to kill him. But he's just because it's what a king cobra does.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. It shows the animalistic kind of stuff, whereas I think today's humor is like, oh, yeah, but no, because this wouldn't happen. It's like, yeah, in the human world, you know, the animal world is very different. That's why I find animals very fascinating, because they're very different. But it's the same type of stuff. You get what I mean?
Well, get ready for it. Well, apparently in January 2020, it was announced that a photorealistic computer animated remake was in development. So all of those natural instincts and natural things that you just described from the book and everything like that, they're going to be out the window, aren't they? And
is it going to show the whole having a deer on my wall with the antlers and the whole, I shot that deer, so I put it on my wall as a trophy? Is it
no, the dad will get shot instead, and the mom will be a strong, independent female deer, and yeah, it's going to be a whole different story. We're in 2023 now for Bambi.
Independent female deer where she is now Superwoman.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. That's the tragedy of it. Since this film's come out, though, even from the lukewarm reception at the time, this film has been added on loads of lists of top 10 animated films of all time. Massively influential, and watched it again. The animation in this film is just absolutely stellar from beginning to end. We've already mentioned sort of like the more realistic depiction of animals in the film. You still get like the cartoony elements here and there. There was a lot that was removed from the film, though. Like Walt Disney got involved in the story process, and there's a quote from Mel Shaw, who was writer and animator on the film, and there was going to be a scene where Bambi accidentally steps on like an anthill, and then you were going to go into the anthill and see how all the devastation
that... Yeah. And then we had Bugs Life.
Bugs Life, yes, years later. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe Pixar found all of these like thrown away pages from back in 1942. But yeah, then they were just kind of brainstorming for weeks. I think they were going in this direction of the ants and going on in this tangent, and they were like, "What the fuck are we doing? This is Bambi. What's this got to do with the story?" And there are some elements to that at the beginning of the film. It's very cutesy, and a lot of the film is just, "Oh, isn't baby Bambi adorable? Look at him look at him fall over. Look at him trying to speak, and what a flower is, and talking to all of his animal friends." There's a lot of that at the beginning of the film. There were going to be lots of other characters that were intended to be in the film as well. There was going to be 6 individual rabbit characters, kind of like aping off the 7 dwarfs. Eventually that was whittled down to sort of like 5 generic rabbits, and then Thumper sort of like being your main character there. I really like Thumper. He's got some very quotable lines to this day. If you can't say nothing nice, don't say nothing
Thumper
at
is the
all.
one character that makes you realise that rabbits actually thump on the floor.
They do, yeah.
That's the reason I know that. Otherwise, I wouldn't know that. So Thumper is great.
No, really memorable lines from it. I think that's probably one of the most famous lines from the film, actually, is from Thumper. And then there was, you see them in the film, there's a squirrel and a chipmunk character. Apparently they were going to have a much bigger part. They were going to be like this comedic duo, kind of like Laurel and Hardy type thing. And after years of experimentation, they just they shifted the focus onto the main 3, that being Bambi, Thumper, and Flower. One thing that really caught me off guard, though, watching it, younger Flower really sounds feminine, and I thought was a girl, based on the reaction, kind of like the eyelashes.
Hey, I thought Bambi was a girl.
Oh, did you? Oh, okay, no, I thought. I always
until
thought
Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts made me realise Bambi's a dude. I was like, what? I know there's a whole Little Prince, but obviously I was a child when I heard that. But yeah.
No, I always knew Bambi was a dude, but like Flower is like, "Oh, that's all right. He can call me Flower if he wants to," and like acting really bashful and almost like Flower fancies Bambi a little bit. Really appreciative of his compliments and his charms and everything like that. And then when you flash forward to when they're adults and you've got like this deep booming masculine voice coming out of Flower, I'm like, whoa, hang on, what happened here? But I did check the cast list, and no, Flower is played by a dude in all ages of Flower's life. So yeah, that just caught me off guard. That was kind of interesting, I suppose.
Do you know what's great about it though? Because when you see a skunk, imagine a skunk, but with all the foul smell. Skunks look kind of cool, don't they?
Yeah.
They got white shirt, and I think the great thing about that was it was the kind of what you don't expect when you see a skunk. You're like, oh, they look kind of cool, but then they smell, and you're like, whoa, what's that? You know what I mean? It's kind of like when your girlfriend has a fart, and you're like, whoa, okay, I didn't expect that. Like, do you know what I mean? It's the same kind of. I think the great thing about it was Flower. It's not what you expect, and I think that really goes really, really well. It's that subtle kind of. Whether it's intentional or not, that whole kind of, okay, not what I expected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 100%. I was just looking at the animations, because I want to talk about the animation on this thing, because there's so many different styles in this thing. There's a really funny comment here where they're talking about that, well, they have animated deer before. There were deer in the original Snow White movie. But in the words of Eric Larson, who was one of the animators, he says that the deer in Snow White were animated, quote, like big flour sacks. I don't remember them being that bad, but maybe I need to go back and watch that scene again in Snow White. One thing that they did, though, and I think this is something that Disney, I don't know if they still do, but I know definitely for Lion King they did this, because I remember seeing a trailer for it. It was like at the beginning of one of the VHSs that I had. They brought the animals in. They brought skunks and rabbits and deer and you name it. They brought them into the studio so that the artists had something to research, to analyze, to sketch, and to come up with how they were going to handle it with the movie. And I really appreciate them doing that. They brought on an artist called Rico Lebrun who painted animals and came up with like really realistic looking animals. Too realistic for Disney. they didn't have like the big eyes or like the personality, and then they brought another artist in. Mark Davis is the one who's credited as creating the final design of Bambi, which brought in all the elements that we see. So as I say, I think it's like the perfect marriage of all those different styles into the film. They actually brought humans in as well and sketched them for the skating scene, probably to get some kind of like choreography or movements of how they were going to animate that scene. But one of the coolest things, and actually one of my favourite shots in the film, it's the opening shot of the film. The multi-plane camera, which has been used in some of the other Disney films before, so this wasn't like a new technique for Bambi, I don't think, but I think they really like expanded it for Bambi. And it's the opening scene where you've just got the Love Is a Song playing at the beginning, and you just get the pan through the forest, and you've got like all those different layers of the animation. The one in the foreground is moving much faster, and that's on like one plane. And then there's like another layer of trees behind it, which is moving slightly slower, and then all the way, and you've got all of these different layers stacked up that are like all moving together, and it just makes the frame look so dense, and the depth of the forest and everything, and it's just setting the scene. It's just an establishing shot, but I really, really genuinely love that scene. And then obviously you zoom in, and you've got newborn Bambi with his mom. I think it just really showcases how far they came with the animation on that. And they brought in like a Chinese animator as well, Tyrus Wong apparently, who was made an art director of the film because of how he drew the forest backgrounds. Apparently they had an artist working on it before, but the trees were too busy and it was too chaotic, and your eyes couldn't sort of lock onto anything. And he came up with a much more what's the word I'm looking for, minimalistic approach, I guess. Like the main focus was really dense, but then the backgrounds were kind of less detailed, so that the eye had something to focus on. So just loads of stuff going on in this film with the animation. But is there a particular scene for you, either in terms of a memorable scene or at least in terms of the animation, that really sticks out for you?
To be fair, for me, it's the whole April showers when things start dropping, and I'm like, and then it goes to the beat, and then suddenly, it's not to the beat, but it's every other beat kind of thing, and you're like, okay, and you're like, did,
Dun, dun,
did,
dun,
did,
dun, dun.
and
Yeah.
it sticks in my mind as clear as Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or ABC. It sticks in my mind exactly the same amount. I don't know whether it's the same for you or it's the same for anyone else, but to me, it's a very... Because if anyone's asked you about Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, you just know it. You just know it. It's the same with April Showers. To me, I just know it.
Yeah.
You know, ABC, I just know it. It's just one of those things you go... Like, that's it. There is no... I feel like it's weird to say, but it's not a song to me. It's just kind of... It's just there. It's just a song that's always existed from the beginning of time. Like, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same. I mean, we were chatting on Facebook a little bit before we went live, and we both agreed that this was probably going to be our pick for favourite song. So the music was composed by Frank Churchill, lyrics done by Larry Morey, and there's not many songs in this film. There really isn't. There's 4 credited to the movie. There's Love Is a Song, which is obviously your opening one. That's kind of like your main Bambi theme, I guess, that works throughout the film. Little April Shower, Let's Sing a Gay Little Spring Song. Oh, I love how the meaning of that word's changed. And then number 4, Looking for Romance, I Bring You a Song. Most of the other ones aren't really that memorable. The most memorable one is Little April Shower, and I'm exactly the same as you. Every now and then I will just be pottering around the house, going about my day, and I'll just be going like, drip, drip, drop, little April shower.
It's one of those, isn't it? It's that weird kind of... it's kind of almost like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Like, you just know the song. Even if you've never seen the movie, you just know the song.
Yeah.
But here's a random fact. Did you know there were only 900 words uttered in the whole movie?
Wow. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I guess it would probably be low because, there isn't much dialogue in the film. But no, I didn't know an exact count on the words. No, that's pretty cool.
I think I have, to be fair. It's the kind of same with, Mr. Bean and all that kind of stuff. That visual... not comedy, but that visual movie kind of stuff where you don't need constant saying this, saying that. You know what I mean? You need that sort of actual stuff that's happening, if that makes sense. It's kind of the same with, you know, how horror movies back in the 80s were all like rated at 18,
Hmm.
whereas now they're all rated like 15 because there's no sexual violence. It's just, we don't need that.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of vibe. They didn't need the whole, you know, it just needed to kind of be showcasey because this came out like not long after Fantasia, and Fantasia was all about visuals. It was about sound. It was about this. They didn't need this abrupt 100% like, right, okay, we need a good story. I mean, it is a good story, but you know what I mean? They don't need this whole like, we need a great story. It needs to be 15 out of 10 or otherwise to scrapping the thing.
Hmm.
It needed to be, oh, that's cool. April showers. This is good. Oh, this is cool. Bambi's mom gets shot. You don't see it, but it's cool. It has an effect. That's what they wanted, which I think makes this stand out from not every other Disney movie, but a lot of modern Disney movies.
Yeah, I think Fantasia is a really good example actually, and the one scene that I'm thinking of from that specifically is the dinosaur one, sort of like the beginning of the world one. Now, granted, Fantasia, the whole conceit of that film is that it's music with imagery, so there isn't going to be any dialogue.
Imagery.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And this one, yeah, there is more characterization in there. There is some dialogue in there, but it's still kept quite minimal. I I'm actually trying to picture what it would be like if they just went purely imagery in this one, just purely visual with no dialogue. I think they probably
What?
still
Like
could have done it. I actually think you'd have had to have
what?
you'd have lost a bit of character, I suppose, with like Thumper and everything like that. But I do think if they wanted to go super realistic with this, in the same vein as something like Fantasia, some of the bits that you see in that, I think they could have done it. But I think it's a good marriage between the two. But the problem is that you seem to have the majority of your characterization and your personality and everything in the first half, as we mentioned, and then in the second half it definitely does go more minimalistic in terms of the character and the dialogue and everything like that. You kind of
Yeah,
have the Twitter pated scene where they all find their romantic matches, and then after that it's really not much dialogue at all throughout towards the end.
yeah. But it's that whole Van Halen reference that I'm going to have on every video. It's that whole kind of, the first one was so like David Lee Roth, Van Halen, amazing, brilliant, everyone loved it. Then David Lee Roth leaves. Now every Sammy Hagar album went to number one, but what's the most memorable? Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
It's the same sort of vibe with, because you end up such that big climax of Bambi's mom dies, and you're like, whoa, and everyone sees Bambi. If I was asking you if I said to you now, right now, draw a picture of Bambi, would you draw adult Bambi or child Bambi?
Oh, child, yeah, yeah, child Bambi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Kingdom Hearts, child Bambi, this. It's all exactly the same. So it's more memorable. It doesn't mean the second half's any worse, but it has this big climax. So you're like, whoa, this was good, and that's all anyone remembers. Because until I watch, I rewatched it the other day. I do this with every single time we review these. I watched it a couple of days before as well, and you know, until I watched it that day, I wasn't naive to think, whoa, I thought the movie ended here, but it was a kind of, that's when my brain stopped. I knew it went further, but my brain stopped there because that's the climax.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of that as well, I think Nostalgia Critic mentioned this when he reviewed all the Disney films, but it is something that stuck with me. And after watching the film myself, I'm like, yeah, it is kind of jarring. Right after the most traumatic scene in the whole film, after Bambi's mom's death and come with me, Bambi, and, you know, they leave. Right after that, we fade to black. We want a moment where we're just sinking it in, and we're straight into like la 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 twittery la 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 la, and everything's all happy again. And I know that Disney's probably trying to diffuse the tension there, but it's like, can we have a moment? And I think that's probably why Land Before Time has more of an impact on me, because you spend time.
Not because the girl got shot.
You spend time with a grieving Littlefoot. Like, it's not like the mom dies, you fade to black, and then there's some cutesy shit happening. You stay with Littlefoot, and he is totally inconsolable. He's beside himself. The movie just plays with his emotions, and he sees a shadow of his own shadow, and he thinks it's his mom because it's really big and projected on a wall. And then he sees a cloud, and he thinks it's his mom, and it's not. It's just a cloud. And then they had to add the scene in where he talks to the old dinosaur, where he can kind of get everything off his chest, and this old dinosaur can like talk him through that it's a natural part of life. That wasn't in the original cut of the movie. It was going to be even more heart-wrenching, but the movie censors or whatever said this is too hard hitting. You need to have a scene in where he talks through something. And I appreciate that a lot more with Land Before Time. This one seems like you have the most pivotal moment, the most heart-wrenching moment, and then boom, we're back to like the cutesy shit. And then it's kind of just left in the dust a little bit, the impact of that scene, I think. The scene in isolation is great, but when you watch it in the context of the movie, it's almost like, right, that's that scene done, move on to the next one. It's a little bit abrupt for me.
It depends how you look at it, doesn't it? Because you could have something bad like that happen to you and you go, right, move on, next chapter in my life.
Life goes on. Yeah, nature.
Yeah. And I think that's the good thing about it, is because, like you say, life goes on, nature, whatever happens. But some people, like, you could have your mum die, your dad die, your brother, sister, whatever, and you might take 4 months to get over it, whatever. Let's just pick a random number. But I might take 8 months. Do you get what I mean? I think the great thing about it is it shows, if you want to compare the two, is that no one's the same. Everything is different. And I think that was the beauty of growing up in that sort of era where I watched Land Before Time, I watched Bambi. Everything is different. You never know depending on your situation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm trying to think of any. Actually, there's a few other scenes that stick out in my mind upon a rewatch that I love. One of my favorite scenes, and it's really stylistic in the animation as well, is when he has the fight with the other book, who's actually called Ronno. I didn't know he was named in this film, but I think that's a character name from the book, when that he and the other book fight over the affections of Faylene. The lighting, it's like just, those two characters of the set piece, and then you'll have like a bright green background or something, and it's almost like an anime battle or something. It's just like the lighting's really stark and dramatic and everything, and I really love that scene. That scene sticks out to me. And also the animation during the forest fire at the end is really quite impactful. And there's a scene that always sticks in my mind. I think it was like a trailer or something at the beginning of every single Disney VHS. The shot of Bambi and the Prince of the Forest jumping off the waterfall as they've got all the fire behind them. That's a really cool shot. So there is beauty in the animation, as I said, from like the multi-plane camera to the really stylized kind of things like that. Another scene that I would argue is even more traumatizing than Bambi's mom's death. It's when you've got like the pheasants hiding in the grass and man's approaching, and two of them are like, just stay here, keep quiet, and the other one's freaking the fuck out, and it's like, I can't take it anymore, I need to fly away, and they're like, don't fly away, and it's just like, I can't stand it anymore, and she flies out and gets fucking shot, and you see the body fall to the ground. I'm like, holy shit, this is like really impactful stuff. One question I was going to ask you, what do you think to the idea of you never seeing man on screen at all? What do you think to that idea?
I think it's great, because the reason I think it's great is because it's one of those things. You ever watch Bird Box?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so it's an example of how Bird Box, you never see the thing that kills people and the thing that makes them turn to suicide. And I think it's the great aspect of a lot of stuff is you don't know what does it. Okay, and obviously you know what man is. You are a man, like, you know what I mean? But you never know what that thing is. You don't need to see certain things happen for things to be effective. Like, you really don't. You don't need to see someone kill someone for it to be effective. You just need to see the whole, oh, the shadow. Oh, it happens. Oh, shit. Like, someone's upset by it, and that has a big effect. Whereas, what would have a big effect if you saw a killer stab someone in the heart? Oh dear, no, it's bad. Or the daughter of that person get really sad, really upset that she's lost her guardian, she's lost everything. What has more of an effect?
Well, yeah,
I feel like that's it. Exactly. And I feel like that's the thing about man. And the great thing about it is it's about the animals that way. If you saw man, is it about the animals? Yeah, sure. But you see man. The animals are the dominant. They've been killed by something of, they don't understand it. And that's the difference. Whereas it's like Lion King, where they're, obviously man exists, all that kind of stuff. But, they don't understand it. The whole kingdom is the lion kingdom. The whole thing about this is the deers, the this, the that, the rabbits, all that kind of stuff. Man killed them. Oh shit. They don't really understand what's going on there. So they make peace with themselves. They make friends with themselves. Man is a completely different thing. It's like if you saw Land Before Time, let's say obviously they get hit by an asteroid. You don't know what that is. You don't have a movie about the asteroids and the asteroid family, do you? The same.
Don't give Disney any ideas. They'll probably do something like that.
But you get what I mean, though.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing. It's an unknown entity, which I think, because I think the great thing that Bambi does, it's an unknown entity, but we are obviously the entity. I could go shoot a deer tomorrow. You know exactly who I am. I'm Dale. Hello, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a human. I do that, but I don't actually shoot deers. But I'm just saying. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm a human. I do that. Like, that's the kind of thing. Whereas in Bambi, is an unknown entity. It's like, whoa, you know what it is, but okay, this is scary to them, because realistically, if I was to go out there and go fishing, what do those fish think?
Yeah.
First off, they don't. They just think there's a guy. Then realistically, the other fish look at them. If they have any thought process, they just think there's some dude out there killing them. They don't know who I am, who we are, what we do, why we're doing it. But it's an unknown entity, and it's the same thing with Bambi. And I think that's brilliant. I don't think if they were to ever show the killer, it would just ruin the whole thing.
Yeah, it really bigs man up as this force of nature, and that's like brilliantly set up where you've got the initial meadow scene, and I think Bambi says like, "Who was that? Like, what? Why was everyone running?" And then there's like a pause. Oh, we lost Dale. He'll be back in just a second. I'll just catch him up on what I'm saying when he gets back. But yeah, the bit where there's like a pause and she says, "Man was in the forest." She just lets that hang, and we as the audience know that, and that probably sets us up for something very bad to come, which of course does happen later on in the film. Here we go. I'm just bringing him back in. There we go. We lost you for a second.
We're all good.
I was just saying about how man's like a force of nature in the movie, and the line that's set up from Bambi's mom where he says like, "Why did we all have to run?" And she just pauses and goes, "Man was in the forest." And she's that's it. Just lets it hang.
That's the thing. I think a lot of movies, maybe not a lot of movies today. I mean, I could be quite biased because I grew up years ago, and I'm like 95 years old. But you know what I mean? I could be biased to it, but I think a lot of movies today, they try to show what's there. It's the same with, like, you get Halloween. I mean, to be fair, it's a weird one because Halloween, the original Halloween, showed Michael Myers' face, which I didn't like. That was the one scene I did not like. Whereas the new ones, it was a blurred face. That's better because you don't always want to know where the shit you hate comes from. It's the same with Star Wars. Episode 4, 5, and 6 were great. Do we need episode 1, 2, and 3? As good as episode 1 and 3 were, I hate episode 2. But we don't need to know where the shit I love comes from. Do you know what I mean? Like, ice cream. I love ice cream. But do I want rock salt? No, go fuck yourself. Leave it alone.
There's loads of examples of that. Especially in the horror genre, there's loads of examples of that. Like Alien, where they get down on the planet and they find the space jockey, and it's like, who is the space jockey? What happened here? And it's not important. It's not important. What you need to know is that another alien, another being, another astronaut from whatever also landed on this place, and bad shit fucking happened to this thing. And then you get stuff like Prometheus and Alien Covenant, and it tries to explain it and go in too much detail, and it just kills the mystery and the enigma of it. The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing's another example of that, how similar kind of scenario. As I say, in the horror genre, you get a lot of similar tropes, but they go to a neighboring scientific camp and they find that everyone's dead there and everyone's mangled, and they find this weird alien creature, and they're like, what the hell happened here? And they're watching through like little clips of old videos. And you don't need to know the specifics of everything that happened at that camp. What you need to know is that bad shit happened, and that's foreshadowing what's about to happen to these characters now that we're seeing. And then they did The Thing 2011 remake / prequel where they explain everything that happened at the camp, and it just ruins it. Yeah, some things aren't. We don't always need backstory or involved lore because it diminishes the impact of the mystery of
it's kind of the same with you've got a lot of I mean, Final Fantasy would be a good one. You get Final Fantasy 1 through 6. They're 2D pixelated games where people talk, there's no voice actors, so you kind of make it up in your head. Whereas you get the 3D ones, the new ones like Final Fantasy 16, they've got the voice actors where in some level, great, amazing, you get to hear the voices. That's amazing. If anyone here was to go, oh, Final Fantasy 6 remake, people would buy it like that. Like I would, because it's one of my favorite games ever made. But at the same time, it's like, but imagine the main character didn't speak how you thought. It's a good thing trying to make your own. It's the same with any book. You make it up in your own head.
Yeah.
So when it's made into reality, you're like, not really what I saw. You know what I mean? It's like a weird kind of like, it's cool to see it, but at the same time, it's like, not really my kind of vibe.
Yeah. That reminded me, actually, you mentioned Final Fantasy there. I'm not sure if this was Square Enix, actually. Dragon Quest, that series. Dragon Quest
Yes,
8
right.
on PS2, one of my favourite games of all time. It's amazing. All of the supporting characters in your party have voices, and the voice acting's great, like the English dub, it's amazing. But the main character doesn't talk verbally. Like there'll be like text coming up on the screen, or he'll have expressions, but he never talks. And I guess that's kind of that thing where if they just gave the character a voice, well, that's it. You know, there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. But if you're playing it, you can kind of maybe put your own personality to the character or your own voice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that kind of 50-50 vibe of, would I like to hear him say something? Sure, but at the same time, you want it to be you.
Yeah.
It's like anything of Harry Potter when they made the movies. I'm sure there was a lot of. I mean, when Harry Potter came out, I was 5. I watched the movies before I read any of them. That was a long time ago. I watched the movies before I read any of the books. I was 6 years old, whatever it be. But I'm sure there's a lot of people who were, let's say they were 12, 13 years old. They read the books and they saw the movie and went, that's not how I pictured it.
That's what I did. Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah.
I read the books first, so I had very clear depiction in my
You
head. You
cannot have been like, how old were you? 8?
Was it 2000 was the first one, wasn't it? The first Harry Potter film, so I'd have been 7.
2001.
Oh, 2001 was the first. Okay, yeah, I'd have been 8 then. Yeah. Oh yeah, of course it was. It was the same year as, I remember the trailers coming out at the same time. You had the 2 big fantasy epics. It was Lord of the Rings and Philosopher's Stone in the same year.
And Lord of the Rings came out on my birthday, but I was a Harry Potter fan. It was weird.
Oh, boo. Yes, I was too. It took me a little bit to warm up to Lord of the Rings, and then thankfully once I was a fan, I never looked back. Yeah, wow, those were good days for films. Where are we now?
2001.
Where are we now?
Back when we were children. Now we're what? 47.
Oh no. I don't want to get older. Yeah, so just wrapping up on Bambi. I'm trying to think of anything else to talk about this. I should have opened with this. It was actually nominated for 3 Academy Awards, which is pretty cool. For Best Sound, Best Song for Love Is a Song, and Original Music Score. A lot of these early Disney films were nominated in the music categories. It didn't win any though this time. It was just nominated for the 3. But this was a massive box office bomb, unfortunately, because again, 1942, there was still a world war raging on. So the budget was $858,000, and the box office only made 267.4. I imagine that from all the subsequent rescreenings and everything like that, and actually as part of Disney 100 this year, I think it was around April time, April show, maybe that's why they brought it out around that time. It was rescreened again, so I imagine probably from everything like that, it has very much made its money back in the long run. But certainly around that time, it was another box office bomb, which kind of led us on to, if I just tee up what we're doing next week, if I can find it. Is it over there? It's over there and I can't reach it. But we're doing Saludos Amigos. Number 6, one of the shortest Disney. I don't even know if you can call it a feature. I don't even think it qualifies as a feature. But at 42 minutes, 42 minutes. So I think, will the review be longer than that, or will we break even as the film? I have seen it. It can be our longest review. Yeah. I have seen it. This was one of the ones I watched when I was ill, but I only got up to this one. Oh, god damn it. Dale, stop disconnecting your bloody camera. But yes, Saludos Amigos is the next one. So that's going to move on to the propaganda era of Disney, where they were trying to accrue more fans from Latin America and places like that. So they were kind of very much pandering to that demographic in order to draft more people in and more profits. Still during World War II, of course, trying to recoup a little bit of money. So the next few are going to be much shorter. Oh, here we go, bringing him back in. There we go, he's back.
Sorry.
That's fine. I was just saying we're moving into the propaganda era of Disney, where they're trying to...
How many were there in that era? 4?
We have Saludos Amigos, we have 3 Caballeros. I guess you could argue that those are the only 2 Latin American ones.
Nah, what's after... Wait, how many is it?
Well,
Saludos
then,
Amigos.
then you've got Make Mine Music, then you've got Fun and
Yeah.
Fancy Free, then you've got Melody
Yeah.
Time. But none of I think it's just the two, Saludos Amigos and Three
Yeah,
Caballeros,
but
that are the Latin American ones.
no, but I'd say you got five, which are your World War II era kind of. I don't know how to explain it. We'll get more into it when we talk about it. But your kind of, classic kind of. Well, we'll make a Disney movie. Sure, we've made one. You know what I mean?
Well, World War Two ended in 1945, I think, didn't it? So, Three Caballeros was 1944. Melody Time, I'm assuming, is probably that was 1948. Okay, so yeah, you had a big jump there. You had a 4-year jump between those films.
I'm still waiting for the World War III era, kind of.
Oh God, oh, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen in our lifetime, isn't it? Hopefully not.
Yeah,
but
the World War III Disney, where Walt Disney's just there going, "Oh fuck, there's another one."
Well, it can't get any worse than the stuff they've been peddling out recently, so we'll see.
Saludos Amigos is better than fucking Strange World. I will say that.
Well, it's considerably shorter than Strange World as well, so
good.
It's,
Strange
Saludos
World
Amigos is a harmless. It's just very different. As I say, it's the propaganda live action / animated era, isn't it? So we'll get through.
So was that Donald Duck cartoon in the 1950s? Like,
yeah.
There was.
Was that Daffy Duck?
Well?
Was that Daffy Duck that did?
No, that was Donald Duck. That was Donald,
was
because
yeah,
Disney was. You ever seen that Family Guy episode? Donald, Disney with the whole Jew.
Yeah,
exactly. Walt Disney was, anyway. But the point I'm making is, you've got that era where, imagine we had that today, we'd be going, "That's a shit era." It's the same. It's the same sort of thing that's going on, and I think you had, like you say, Donald Duck, Daffy Duck. What do we have that's the one question. What do we have today? You had Donald Duck, you had Daffy Duck, you had Mickey Mouse, you had Bugs Bunny, you had Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, which I don't know if I mentioned to you is free game. It is what's the word? Public
domain.
What's the word?
Public
domain. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit is public domain.
Oh wow, we could make a fortune. Let's get on it.
Yeah, did you not know this? Oswald
didn't.
the Lucky Rabbit is public domain, and so is the original cartoon. So if you want to use Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, anyone watch it. If you want to use that, use it. It is public domain. You can use that. You can do what you want. You can have him kill Mickey Mouse and make a fortune.
Well, it's interesting because I think like Mickey Mouse as a character is coming up to public domain, but I don't know if there's a way that a studio can buy something back, or if it's like you can't make him look how he does now. Like you can use the name Mickey Mouse, but you couldn't depict him visually as the same way. I don't know.
It's the same with how Winnie the Pooh is public domain, but Winnie the Pooh with his red T-shirt isn't, because that's owned by Disney.
Exactly.
Tigger is owned by Disney, but the actual Winnie the Pooh character is public domain. So you could have Winnie the Pooh, like they had Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, which is going to be our next review, isn't it? Come on, why not? But you know what I mean? Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, like that was made because Winnie the Pooh is public domain, but Winnie the Pooh with his red T-shirt isn't.
Oh bother. I can't wait to get to that. I love me some Winnie the Pooh. It's some of the most wholesome shit there is.
It's good, and the jokes in it are just better. Do you know what I love as well? Christopher Robin, which I know you went it's all right, but I love that. I've watched
That's why I have my name. My mum was enamoured with Winnie the Pooh and all the characters, and she liked the name Christopher Robin, and that's why I was called Christopher. Ain't that nice?
Is that actually a thing?
That's true story. Yeah, true story. And apparently, if I'd have been born a girl, I would have been called Jessica.
Mine is because Dale Winton, and they thought I was a bit gay. No, I'm joking. It's not a thing. But what really? Because of Jessica, is that actually a thing?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, one thing to note about Saludos Amigos is, and I don't want to talk about it loads now because shit, we'll have nothing to talk about next week. It's the first Disney animated classic to have some of the main Disney roster in there. You've got Donald Duck in there. You've got Goofy in there. So that's a pretty big deal,
isn't it? Because you have Fantasia starts it off.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Sorry.
Fantasia, to me, I saw was the whole pinnacle of Disney. If you were to group any movie with Disney, it's Fantasia. But,
of course it is. Of course it is. Yeah, that's number one. But at least we get... Donald's my favourite. Donald's always my favourite. And Daffy's my favourite from Looney Tunes as well. So I guess it's all the duck characters that I love.
It's all the duck characters.
It's all the crazy, just yeah, just mood swings and just
But Donald
screaming
Duck
and
is a
ranting
harder
and
voice
shouting.
to do than Daffy Duck.
Yeah, yeah. Right, I think we'll round off Bambi there. We've had a few people comment though at the beginning, so thank you for everyone that's tuned in. We hope you're enjoying the Disney streams as well. We had a commenter from last week saying that they really like the behind the scenes things that we bring and hearing our opinions on these. Well, we're not going anywhere. We're back every single Monday at 8 p.m, whether it's a pre-recorded review or whether we're live like we are tonight. We've got a lot of movies to get through, but it's going to be interesting the next couple of weeks because when we get to, Make Mine Music and Melody Time, I haven't seen those before. So that's going to be a complete new one for me.
You've seen Salos Amigos, haven't you?
Only recently, like as
I
of a few
haven't
weeks
seen that
ago.
one. I've seen Fun and Fancy Free, but I haven't seen Salos Amigos. So that'll be an interesting. For that one, I will specifically watch that literally to the point where we go live at 8. I will finish at 8 o'clock. I will watch it so fresh because I've not seen it. And I think that'll have a good impact because it will have one of those things of, what's your first memory? But like, well, an hour ago. Like, I think that'd be great. And that's the first time I'm going to watch it as well. So I'm waiting on that one.
I remember Three Caballeros being a bit of a chore to get. Yeah, it's 71 minutes, Three Caballeros, but 42 minutes for Saludos Amigos. It's a bit of a chore, and it does feel every minute of that, but we'll get through it. And,
have you ever seen Goku fight Frieza?
No, is that 40 minutes?
It's 5 hours.
Oh my god.
It's a long time, but it's great because he says it's going to last 5 minutes, and it doesn't. It lasts 5 hours. So the point is, we're okay.
Jesus Christ.
Ever since we were kids, we were lied to about how long things are, so it's fine.
But no, that'll do it for us. Thank you to everyone that's tuned in and watched. And if you are just tuning in now, let us know some of your favourite bits from Bambi. Any favourite songs, favourite characters, any moments that stick out to you. And of course, anything Disney related, because we're going to be here for a long time. So thank you to everyone. Say that again?
Like the pins that you get in Disneyland, if anyone's ever got one.
Yes, those are cool.
That is the thing. I've got one, I think. I've got a Kingdom Hearts. Well, I had one. I don't think I have it anymore.
Went, I was 11 years old, so a long time ago. They were just...
Hang on, what year was that?
When I was 11, so that would have been 2004?
You were not 11 in 2004. Yeah, you were.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
How old was I? 10. That's weird, because I was 12 in 2007. How does that work? I'm really confused, but I went...
Well, I was born 93, so I'd have been 10 in 2003. So yeah, I'd have been 11 in 2004.
Yeah, but I was 11 in 2007, and yet I was born in 1994. So how does that make sense?
What? You were born 94, so you'd have been 10 in 2004.
Yeah.
But your birthday's in December, so does that kind of like fuck things up a bit?
Okay, so... It's just because when I went to Disneyland, last time I went to Disneyland, I was 12. So I missed, like, basically we went like a couple of years apart.
Yeah. But I know when I last went, when I was 11, they had just bought the pins in as a thing. And, the pins, like, people were buying, like, the harnesses to put all the pins on. They had just become a thing when I went when I was 11. So people were, like, going fucking nuts for them and buying loads of them. They were really cool though. Like, they're impossible to collect because they've probably done like 1 trillion of them. But
they're expensive.
Yeah, they're very expensive. They'll be way more expensive now too.
I have a Kingdom Hearts one. Well, 2 of them, I think. 1 or 2.
You got that with the game, right? The special editions. Yeah, they bought them out with that.
I also got a yo-yo, but I got a glow-in-the-dark Monsters Inc. yo-yo with one of them, and then it broke after like a day. So
the things we do for Kingdom Hearts. Well, the things you do for Kingdom Hearts, certainly. Right, anyway, we'll round it off, guys. We'll round it off. But thank you for tuning in, and we'll